Good. Now you know the definition of a loop, and you know that we have for loops and while loops in Python. And in this lecture you will learn how to write for loops. Now a for loop normally iterates through a list of objects and applies some methods or some functions or some operations over each of these objects. The array that the for loop iterates through is not necessarily a list, it can be a tuple, sometimes it can be a dictionary, it can even be a string, so every object that is made of other simpler objects. So let's create a list first. Let's say emails is a list of 3 emails, 3 email addresses. So let's write some fake email addresses here. me@gmail.com, you@hotmail.com, and they@gmail.com. Now let's say you want to apply the print function to each item of this list. And the stupid way to do this would be to print out every item one by one. Let's say the first item, which has an index of 0, and then you do the same for emails with index of 1, and so on and so on. That's definitely not how we want to do it. So to print out these 3 items we use a for loop, and for loop always starts with the for keyword, and then you pick a variable, let's say email. So don't confuse the email variable with the emails variable, these are totally different. And for email in emails, so here you pass a variable that holds the list you want to iterate through, and press enter, and as you see here we got the indentation. So the line that follows the first line of the loop is always indented. So that means this line here that we will write belongs to this loop. So it's part of this block. And here is where we write the action, the statement we want to execute multiple times. So we want to print the email. So that is very straightforward and very clean and very readable. And let's execute this first before I explain it to you better. Save the script first and execute. And this is script 4. So we got the 3 items printed out on the screen. And I obviously got an @ wrong here, no problem. So what the code does is that you say for each item in the list emails, print out the item. And of course you can use every variable that you like, if this is more readable for you. So for each item in the emails list, print out the item. Great. Let's do something more fancy here. I'll delete this line of code. And now I'd like to print out only the emails that have a Gmail address associated with them. So I don't want to print out any other item rather than the Gmail ones. So that means we want Python to make a decision. If it finds Gmail in the item, in the string, it will print it out. If it doesn't find it, will not print it out. So we want to use a conditional here, and that would be an if statement. So again we say for each item in the list, if the string Gmail is in item, print out the item. So I'm sure this was easier than you were expecting. Let's save, Ctrl S, and execute. So we got only the Gmail accounts printed out. So again, we are saying for item in emails, and when we do this, Python grabs the first item of the list. So the first iteration is about the first item, and this item is temporarily stored in the variable item. Then while this value is stored in this variable, Python checks if the string Gmail is in that variable. So with the first item this is true, and that's why Python prints out the item. So it prints out me@gmail.com. Then it goes to the next item. If Gmail is in that item, it prints out the item. In this case, Gmail is not there, so it doesn't do anything, and it goes to the next item. So that's why we call it a loop. So the loop goes in and out until the list is exhausted. So when it goes to the third item, to the last item of the list, the loop ends and the output is generated, like here. And don't forget about indentation. So be careful and look here that we indent it under the for loop, and again we indent it under the if statement, because this indentation here is part of the if block, and this one here is part of the for loop block. So very readable code, and I believe very fun to write. I'll see you in the next lecture.